Let's begin with the blessing, the study of Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, melech ha'olam, asher nathan lanu, Torat emet, v'chaye olam anata, betosenu, Baruch atah Adonai noten ha-Torah. Blessed are you, Hashem our God, King of the universe, who gave us the Torah of truth and implanted eternal life within us. Blessed are you, Hashem, giver of the Torah. Amen. So we're beginning with Bidmar, chapter 16, Numbers 16, verse 1. Now Korak, the son of Yitzhar, the son of Chat, the son of Levi, along with Datan and Aviram, the sons of Eliav, and On, the son of Pelet, descendants of Reuben, took men and rebelled against Moshe. Siding with them were 250 men of Yisrael, leaders of the community, key members of the council, men of reputation. They assembled themselves against Moshe and Aaron and said to them, "You take too much on yourselves. After all, the entire community is holy, every one of them, and Adonai is among them. So why do you lift yourselves up above Adonai's assembly?" When Moshe heard this, he fell on his face. Then he said to Korak and his whole group, "In the morning, Adonai will show who are his and who is the holy person he will allow to approach him. Yes, he will bring whomever he chooses near to himself. Do this. Take censers, Korak, and all your group, put fire in them, and put incense in them before Adonai tomorrow. The one whom Adonai chooses will be the one who is holy. It is you, sons of Levi, who are taking too much on yourselves." Then Moshe said to Korak, "Listen here, you sons of Levi. Is it for you a mere trifle that the God of Israel has separated you from the community of Israel to bring you close to himself, so that you can do the work in the tabernacle of Adonai and stand before the community serving them? He has brought you close, and all your brothers, the sons of Levi, with you. Now, you want the office of Kohen too. That's why you and your group have gathered together against Adonai. After all, what is Aaron that you complain against him?" Then Moshe sent to summon Datan and Aviram, the sons of Eliav. But they replied, "We won't come up. Is it a mere trifle, bringing us up from a land flowing with milk and honey to kill us in the desert, that you now arrogate to yourself the role of dictator over us? You haven't at all brought us into the land flowing with milk and honey, and you haven't put us in possession of fields and vineyards. Do you think you can gouge out these men's eyes and blind them? We won't come up." Moshe was very angry and said to Adonai, "Don't accept their grain offering. I haven't taken one donkey from them. I've done nothing wrong to any of them." Moshe said to Korak, "You and your group be there before Adonai tomorrow. You, they, and Aaron, each of you, take his fire pan and put incense in it. Every one of you, bring before Adonai his fire pan. 250 fire pans. You too, and Aharon, each one his fire pan. Each man took his fire pan, put fire in it, laid incense on it, and stood at the entrance to the tent of meeting with Moshe and Aaron. Korak assembled all the group who were against them at the entrance to the tent of meeting. Then the glory of Adonai appeared to the whole assembly. Adonai said to Moshe and Aaron, separate yourselves from this assembly. I'm going to destroy them right now. They fell on their faces and said, oh God, God of the spirits of all humankind, if one person sins, are you going to be angry with the entire assembly? Adonai answered Moshe, tell the assembly to move away from the homes of Korak, Datan, and Aviram. Moshe got up and went to Datan and Aviram, and the leaders of Israel followed him. There he said to the assembly, leave the tents of these wicked men. Don't touch anything that belongs to them, or you may be swept away in all their sins. So they moved away from all around the area where Korak, Datan, and Aviram lived. Then Datan and Aviram came out and stood at the entrance to their tents with their wives, sons, and little ones. Moshe said, here is how you will know that Adonai has sent me to do all these things, and that I haven't done them out of my own ambition. If these men die a natural death like other people, only sharing the fate common to all humanity, then Adonai has not sent me. But if Adonai does something new, if the ground opens up and swallows them with everything they own, and they go down alive to Sheol, then you will understand that these men have had contempt for Adonai. The moment he finished speaking, the ground under them split apart, the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them up with households, all the people who had sided with Korach and everything they owned. So they and everything they owned went down alive into Sheol. The earth closed over them, and their existence in the community ceased. All Israel around them fled at their shrieks, shouting, the earth might swallow us too. Then fire came out from Adonai and destroyed the 250 men who had offered the incense. Chapter 17. Adonai said to Moshe, tell Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the Kohen, to remove the fire pans from the fire and scatter the smoldering coals at a distance, because they have become holy. Also, the fire pans of these men, whose sin cost them their lives, have become holy, because they were offered before Adonai. Therefore, have them hammered into plates to cover the altar. This will be a sign for the people of Israel. Eleazar the Kohen took the brass firepans, which the men had been burned to death had offered, and they hammered them into a covering for the altar, to remind the people of Israel that an ordinary person not descended from Aaron is not to approach and burn incense before Adonai if he wants to avoid the fate of Korak and his group, as Adonai had said to him through Moshe. But the very next day, the whole community of the people of Israel complained against Moshe and Aaron. You have killed Adonai's people. However, as the community was assembling against Moshe and Aaron, they looked in the direction of the tent of meeting and saw the cloud cover it, and the glory of Adonai appear. Moshe and Aaron came to the front of the tent of meeting. Adonai said to Moshe, "Get away from this assembly, and I will destroy them at once." But they fell on their faces. Moshe said to Aaron, "Take your fire pan, put fire from the altar in it, lay incense on it, and hurry with it to the assembly to make atonement for them, because anger has gone out from Adonai, and the plague has already begun." Aaron took it, as Moshe had said, and ran into the middle of the assembly. There the plague had already begun among the people, but he added the incense and made atonement for the people. He stood between the dead and the living, and the plague was stopped. Those dying from the plague numbered 14,700, besides those who died in the Korak incident. Aaron returned to Moshe at the entrance to the tent of meeting, and the plague was stopped. Adonai said to Moshe, "Speak to the people of Israel, and take from them staves, one for each ancestral tribe, from each leader of a tribe, 12 staves. Write each man's name on his staff, and write Aaron's name on the staff of Levi. For each tribe's leader is to have one staff. Put them in the tent of meeting in front of the testimony where I meet with you. The staff of the man I am going to choose will sprout buds. In this way, I will put a stop to the complaints of the people of Israel keep making against you." Moshe spoke to the people of Israel, and all their leaders gave him staffs, one for each leader, according to the ancestral tribes, 12 staffs. Aaron's staff was among their staffs. Moshe put the staffs before Adonai in the tent of the testimony. The next day, Moshe went into the tent of the testimony, and there he saw that Aaron's staff for the house of Levi had budded. It had sprouted not only buds, but flowers. And ripe almonds as well. Moshe brought out all the staffs from before Adonai to all the people of Israel, and they looked, and each man took back his staff. Adonai said to Moshe, "Return Aaron's staff to its place in front of the testimony. It is to be kept there as a sign to the rebels, so that they will stop grumbling against me and thus not die." Moshe did this. He did as Adonai had ordered him. But the people of Israel said to Moshe, "Oh no, we're dead men, lost. We're all lost. Whenever anyone approaches the tabernacle of Adonai, he dies. Will we all perish?" Chapter 18. Adonai said to Aaron, "You, your sons, and your father's family's line will be responsible for anything that goes wrong in the sanctuary. You and your sons with you will be responsible for anything wrong in your service as Kohanim. But you are to bring your kinsmen, the tribe of Levi, along with yourselves, to work together with you and help you, you and your sons with you, when you are there before the tent of meeting. They are to be at your disposal and perform all kinds of tasks related to the tent. Only they are not to come near the holy furnishings or the altar, so that neither they nor you will die. They will work together with you in your duties related to the tent of meeting, whatever the service in the tent may be. But an unauthorized person is not to come near you. You will take charge of all the holy things and the altar, so that there will no longer be anger against the people of Israel. I myself have taken your kinsmen, the Leviim, from among the people of Israel. They have been given as a gift to Adonai for you, so that you can perform the service in the tent of meeting. You and your sons with you will exercise your prerogatives and duties as Kohanim in regard to everything having to do with the altar and within the curtain. I entrust the service required of Kohanim to you. The unauthorized person who tries to perform it is to be put to death." Adonai said to Aaron, "I myself have put you in charge of the contributions given to me. Everything consecrated by the people of Israel I have given and set aside for you and your sons. This is a perpetual law. Here is what is to be yours of the especially holy things taken from the fire. Every offering they make, that is, every grain offering, sin offering, and guilt offering of theirs that they turn over to me, will be especially holy for you and your sons. You are to eat it in an especially holy place. Every male may eat it. It will be set apart for you. Also, yours is the contribution the people of Israel give in the form of wave offerings. I have given these to you, your sons and your daughters with you. This is a perpetual law. Everyone in your family who is clean may eat it. All the best of the olive oil, wine, and grain. The first person of what they give to Adonai, I have given to you. The first produce to turn ripe of all that is in their land, which they bring to Adonai, is to be yours. Every clean person in your family may eat it. Everything in Israel which has been consecrated unconditionally is to be yours. Everything that comes first out of the womb, all living things, which they offer to Adonai, whether human or animal, will be yours. However, the firstborn of a human being you must redeem. And the firstborn of an unclean beast you are to redeem. The sum to be paid for redeeming anyone a month old or over is to be 5 shekels of silver, 2 ounces. As you value it using the sanctuary shekel, this is the same as 20 gerahs. But the firstborn of an ox, sheep, or goat you are not to redeem. They are holy. You are to splash their blood against the altar and make their fat go up in smoke as an offering made by fire, as a fragrant aroma for Adonai. Their meat will be yours, like the breast that is waved and the right thigh, they will be yours. All the contributions of holy things which the people of Israel offer to Adonai, I have given to you, your sons, and your daughters with you. This is a perpetual law, an eternal covenant of salt before Adonai for you and your descendants with you. Adonai said to Aaron, you are not to have any inheritance or portion in their land. I am your portion and inheritance among the people of Israel. To the descendants of Levi, I have given the entire tenth of the produce collected in Israel. It is their inheritance in payment for the service they render in the tent of meeting. From now on, the people of Israel are not to approach the tent of meeting, so that they will not bear the consequences of their sin and die. Only the Leviim are to perform the service in the tent of meeting. They will be responsible for whatever they do wrong. This is to be a permanent regulation through all your generations. They are to have no inheritance among the people of Israel, because I have given to the Leviim as their inheritance the tenths of the produce which the people of Israel set aside as a gift for Adonai. This is why I have said to them that they are to have no inheritance among the people of Israel. Adonai said to Moshe, tell the Leviim, when you take from the people of Israel the tenth of the produce which I have given you from them as your inheritance, you are to set aside from it a gift for Adonai, 1/10 of the tenth. The gift you set aside will be accounted to you as if it were grain from the threshing floor and grape juice from the wine vat. In this way, you will set aside a gift for Adonai from all your tenths that you receive from the people of Israel. And from these tenths you are to give to Aaron, the Kohen, the gift set aside for Adonai. From everything given to you, you are to set aside all that is due Adonai, the best part of it, its holy portion. Therefore, you are to tell them, when you set aside from it its best part, it will be accounted to the Leviim as if it were grain from the threshing floor and grape juice from the wine vat. You may eat it anywhere, you and your households, because it is your payment in return for your service in the tent of meeting. Moreover, because you will have set aside from it its best parts, you will not be committing any sin because of it. For you are not to profane the holy things of the people of Israel, or you will die. So we have rebellion in the camp. And on the face of it, it appears that Korak had chosen his timing from his point of view quite well. The leadership of Aaron and Moses, there was much disagreement. They had the debacle of the golden calf incident. Then there were the 10 leaders or spies that were sent into the promised land to spy out the land. 10 of the 12 came back with an evil report. And consequently, God's judgment proclaimed that that generation would not enter the promised land, that they would wander in the wilderness for 40 years, that it would be their children who would enter the promised land. Moreover, some changes took place. This was the occasion when the Leviim were chosen by God because they were the one tribe that was faithful to him. They went throughout the camp and slew those, even their own relatives, that had stood against Adonai. And so they took the place of the firstborn. The Leviim took the place of the firstborn. This is very significant. And even in this Torah portion, we see some of that taking place. How do we know this? Well, as Tony Robinson does so well, thematic analysis helps us to understand the message of the Torah. So the rebellion was initiated by Korak, who was a descendant of Levi, the same tribe as Moshe and Aaron. But something that happened after the golden calf is that only the descendants of Aaron could serve as priests, as Kohanim. Not the entire firstborn, even of the tribe of Levi. Korak was a firstborn. His father though, was a secondborn, but he was firstborn. And who aligned themselves with Korak in this rebellion? But 3 firstborn sons, descendants of Reuben. Reuben, who was Yaakov's firstborn son. It is fairly obvious that Korak wanted to be high priest. And when he made his charge against the leadership of Moshe and Aaron, he used some really high-sounding words and said things that, made a lot of sense. This is, but Moshe had Ruach HaKadosh. He had the Holy Spirit of Elohim. So he saw through the subterfuge. He saw through their plan. Immediately, his response is to fall flat on his face. This is not paying homage to Korak and his rebellious rabble. It's paying homage to God. It is a petition to God. It is prayer to God. He fell down before him. And we're going to see this happen time and again in this Torah portion. Not just Moshe, but Aaron with him, falling flat on their faces before Adonai in response to, immediately, to what is going on. This takes discernment, spiritual discernment. And so Moshe calls it just as it is. When he gets back up, God has told him. He knows. And he tells him exactly what it is that Korak is doing. He tells everyone exactly what Korak is doing. He said Korak wants to be the high priest. He wants the priesthood. Now, he wants the priesthood for all the Levi. Perhaps even the firstborn, as it initially was. But that was taken away. So his hope of becoming a high priest was gone. This was his timing. And so Moshe, by God's direction, lays out the test. There are actually 2 rebellions taking place. One of the rebellions is against Moshe and his leadership of the children of Israel. The other rebellion is against Aaron. So we have the 2 rebellions in place at the same time. So you have Korak and the group of 250 men of renown who desire to become priests, bringing their fire pans, as Moshe directed, to offer incense. Now, this incense, the fire pan and the offering of incense, was for the altar of incense within a tent of meeting. That's not where they did that, but they were out from that tent of meeting. But they all came. But that's how serious this was. This incense was that was to be offered by the high priest. And it was a coveted responsibility of the high priest. The high priest could have someone else do it on his behalf. He could have another priest offer that. A great honor. Because the incense that was all offered on the altar in the holy place, the altar of incense, represented the prayers of the people. And it was offered directly to God, the cloud, in the cloud of incense and smoke. This was the strange fire that Aaron's two oldest sons had offered and were consumed. Is because they offered the strange fire, the altar of incense, in the holy place, which they were not authorized to do. And they were burned up. They were killed immediately. Not burned up, but the fire of God came and took their lives. And we have a similar situation happening here, only now it's the 250 that brought their fire pans. Now at this point, of course, Moshe wanted the whole rebellion to come and make their play before God. But the two firstborn of the tribe of Reuben completely rejected Moshe's authority, would not acknowledge him, would not do what he had requested or commanded even. Would not. Now we find at this point that the third firstborn of the tribe of Reuben is no longer mentioned. Seems like someone had a change of heart. This was probably a very wise decision on his part, as some things played out. He's not mentioned again. He was initially mentioned as part of the rebellion, but after that, no. When it came to a head, he obviously had some wisdom. He did not continue to rebel. He did not pursue this power play that is in place. Now here's something that happens, and you don't see this in your English text, but it's in the Hebrew. When Moses goes to, now I forgot their names, Datan and Aviram's tents, Korak goes with him. The other 250 and Aaron stay back at the tent of meeting. But Korak comes. And again, this takes place. Moses is again mediating between God and the people. And here's something that's really interesting. There's a Hebrew word for tents, which is olah. But God himself, speaking to Moshe, says for him to get away from the Mishkan of Korak. The Mishkan is the term used for the tabernacle. So it shows the rebellion has gone to the extent that where Korak had made his own tabernacle as well. Well, Korak's tabernacle and the tents of Dathan and Abiram were swallowed up by the earth. Gone. Gone. Fire came out on the second rebellion back at the tent of meeting. Fire came out from Adonai, consumed those, slew those who had offered fire on their fire pans. All we have left there are the fire pans and the coals. then following that, there's great fear. But God comes out and says to them, I'm going to stop this rebellion against Moshe and Aaron. And he revises a test, the test of the staves. And I want to point out something. There has been a lot of death and destruction taking place here as a result of the rebellion. But God is very merciful in this test. Not a single person dies as a result of this test. No one dies. But he goes beyond what had happened. This rebellion that was initiated by the firstborn tribe of Reuben and Korak of the tribe of Levi. For this test, he takes the entire tribe, all the leaders of the 12 tribes, the ancestral leaders and their staffs, to make it clear that of everyone, of all the tribes, who his chosen one is. And he goes well beyond even what he said as far as the test goes. It shows God's grace and mercy and power, because Aaron's rod not only budded, but it produced flowers and almonds as well. And this is a mark of the Messiah. When Yeshua said that Moshe spoke of him, he was talking about images such as this, the themes throughout the Torah that are pointing to the Messiah. Because this was the mark of the Messiah. Because it was life from the dead. It was resurrection. When Aaron, because the very next day the rebellion continues, right? And Moshe falls on his face, and they fall on their face, and Moshe tells Aaron, get your fire pan and get out there and make atonement for the people. And this is true leadership. We saw those that wanted the power. But here is true leadership, and it's humble. Moshe and Aaron fall on their faces before God. And then they even mediated against their enemies. They called for mercy from God against their enemies. Most politicians would say, oh, take them out, God, take them out. Good riddance to bad rubbish. And I won't have to deal with this political backbiting and their struggles anymore with that. But that's not their response. They're showing true leadership and love for the nation of Israel. And Aaron, he runs. He runs with his fire pan. And he stands between the dead and the living, and makes atonement for the people. And the plague stopped. This is true leadership. That's what's exhibited by Aaron. Are there any questions or comments? We don't have much time. Yes, sir.
What was the symbology of the 5 shekels? That it was speaking about, the 5 pieces of silver.
Yeah. The redemption, amount of redemption for the firstborn. The firstborn had to be redeemed. Right. So that was the price that was set for the redemption of the firstborn, and that, of course, that goes to Adonai.
Why 5?
Oh, That's a good question.
Why silver? What was,
I like that question. It's a great question. So, somebody asking a question like that, such a good question, I will give you a true and correct answer from my perspective. I don't know. But I think it's worth pursuing, and maybe in our Torah study this afternoon, somebody will have some ideas to share concerning that. But yeah. Okay, Kevin's got one. What? Oh, the question was, why 5 shekels as redemption value? Why 5? And why silver as a redemption value for the firstborn? That was the question. Okay. Yes. Silver is what? It represents. Oh, silver, really? Okay. Wow, okay, very good, thank you. Thank you. Redemption. So it makes sense because that's what it's actually doing. So, okay, because sometimes you value gold much higher than silver, but if it's a part of redemption, part of the price of redemption. That's pretty good. Okay. Well, Shabbat Shalom. We'll break now, and when you hear the shofar, we'll be ready to come back in for worship